Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. We are really excited to be here. With me from PMC is Michelle Jordan. I think Kathleen Moyer is on here. I saw Duncan Hardiman and Tom Bailey. Tom is our Pittsburgh representative. So we are really excited to bring this presentation to you. We have joining us Judge Arnone, who is the Magisterial District Judge for 05-2-20, which those of you who are curious, that means Bethel Park, Upper St. Clair in Allegheny County. Am I missing anything, Judge?
No, that's correct. No, that is correct.
Okay. So, we appreciate that you're joining us. We have a PowerPoint presentation that I will share. I just want to tell you that we're not here to give legal advice. We are here to provide information, but we will provide as much information as we can. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. I will keep an eye on the chat and try to answer your questions. This is being recorded by the Mount Lebanon Libraries, so that if you want to look at it again, or you have a friend who wants to look at it again, it will be available on Mount Lebanon Library's website, as well as Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts website, which is pmconline.org. And without any further conversation, because our time is limited, I am going to share my screen and PowerPoint. Okay, hold on a minute. So I want to tell you just a little bit about PMC. We have been in existence for over 30 years. We were created as a result, I will say, of a crisis in confidence in the judiciary. We were created to try to get merit selection through in Pennsylvania. That has been our desire and we've been advocating it for over 30 years. As you all know, we vote for judges, so we have not yet been successful. But that's not the only thing we do. We also really focus on educating people about the courts, about the judiciary, helping people represent themselves. And, if you go to our website, we have a lot of information available on our website. So, okay, wait a minute. I wanted to, for some reason, where is my slideshow? There we go. Okay, so it should now work bigger. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. Much bigger. So, we wanted to explain to you court basics. Like, why do you go to a courthouse? Typically, it's two different areas that you could potentially have an issue. One is called you bring a civil lawsuit, or there's been a civil lawsuit brought against you. That has to do with a private litigation between two parties. There is no right to an attorney. Plaintiffs must prove, proved by preponderance of the evidence of their case. A criminal case is another way one would get to court. It's between a prosecutor representing the state and the defendant. There's a determination as to whether the defendant has broken the law. The standard of proof is higher. The prosecutor must prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. And when you get to common pleas court, you have a right to an attorney. And you have a right to a jury trial, which we should put in there. Our structure in Pennsylvania is a triangular structure, I will say, with it being heavier on the bottom, right? I'm going to start at the top, though. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court is our highest court in Pennsylvania. We have 7 justices of the Supreme Court. They are the final determinant of law in Pennsylvania. There is, we all know about the Supreme Court of the United States, but we have our own Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Below that, we have, and I think we have slides later, so we'll go into a little more detail, is our intermediate appellate courts. They are our Commonwealth Court, Superior Court, and Superior Court. Below that are our courts of common pleas. Every county in Pennsylvania has courts of common pleas. Below that are our municipal courts and our magisterial district court. In Pittsburgh, in Mount Lebanon, you have magisterial district courts. In Pittsburgh proper, I'll say, right, Judge, it's known as a municipal court.
Yeah, essentially, they're really all magisterial district
Right.
courts now. The municipal courts are kind of a thing of the past. That in Philadelphia, they do still have them.
Right. So, Mount Lebanon is in the 5th Judicial District. Your Honor, do you want to explain a little bit about the 5th Judicial District and,
Sure. I mean, the 5th Judicial District is just where Allegheny County falls into relative to a geographic area and encompasses, that portion. I don't know exactly what do you have a slide with the geographic layout? I believe I did see that.
I don't, but
Okay.
it is, I know it's a large geographic layout.
It is. It's very large. It does encompass a big area of Western Pennsylvania, and just referred to as the 5th Judicial, which it does encompass all of Pittsburgh and all of Allegheny County and surrounding counties.
I want to just direct your attention to this website, which is AlleghenyCourts.us. It is a phenomenal website. It has a lot of information on it. There are forms, there's explanations. Now in COVID times, it keeps current with orders affecting whether you can go into court or not. You can observe what requirements need to be met. This is also the Allegheny County Department of Court Records, where you may be able, you can access information about court filings. There are fees, but they are relatively reasonable, I will say. And then, so we discussed our lowest tier of the triangle, which is the Pittsburgh Municipal Court and Mount Lebanon Magisterial District Court. And I'm going to let Judge Arnone take over here because this is his expertise.
Well, yeah, and let me just say, it's referred to, as you stated, as the lowest court. However, it's also the busiest court. It also collects the most monies through the court system. So if you're looking at civil actions, you can see that it's $12,000 or less. That $12,000 also, you can add court costs and other fees to that number, so it could go up a little bit. Obviously, as you said, civil actions can be anything like contractual issues, neighbor issues of a civil manner. If you have a contractor doing work on your home and you weren't satisfied, that would encompass those types of issues. Then we have, of course, the summary and minor offenses such as disorderly conduct or loitering, public intox, retail theft, those kinds of things. Landlord-tenant disputes, criminal cases. Now it says here, except for murder, however, and involuntary manslaughter. However, district judges do preside over homicide cases, although they are all downtown at Pittsburgh Court. We do, all 46 of us, and there are 46 district judges in Allegheny County. We all preside over homicides as well as many other cases in the system. And just to give you an idea, it fluctuates by area, but most district judges will see somewhere in the order of 4,000 cases a year. And that would be a mixture of, as I said, civil, traffic, and criminal. We also have the ability to issue arrest warrants. We do preside over preliminary hearings and arraignments. We do fix and accept bail. The non-traffic offenses, traffic offenses, issue emergency protection orders, PFAs, and arrest and search warrants, as well as administrative search warrants as well for code enforcement. So that is something that's interesting. We also, as district judges, do weddings, preside over other municipal affairs such as swearing-ins, oversee the complete administrative operations of the court functions. And we are certainly responsible for a number of other functionality, including that of the school districts and things that go on, as we talked about earlier, about truancy and things of that nature in the school system.
Your Honor, with respect to most of the cases that you see, are individuals represented by counsel, or do a lot of individuals come into you, to represent themselves?
Yeah, it's quite a mixture. There are both, litigants or defendants that represent themselves. And then there are, I would say, probably on the order of about 25 or 30% have attorneys, and the others that in the civil cases, criminal, and even some of the summary violations, probably about 50-50.
So, what are the qualifications required to be a magisterial judge?
Okay, so as you see right here, you do have to be at least age 21, certainly a resident of the Commonwealth. You do have to live within that district for a time period of at least 1 year prior to the election. And then you do have to complete a certificate of training through the court, through the Minor Judiciary Education Board. It's 6 months of training, and then at the end of that, you have to take a test. That is a pretty significant test. I wouldn't call it the bar exam, but I would certainly say that it's certainly a test that tests one's skill set relative to the law. And in addition to that, once elected, each magisterial district judge does have to do, I believe it's 32 hours now of mandatory training. And that's the most training of all the courts. I mean, even
Right.
some of the other judges have to do things for their, continuing legal education, but this is the most stringent. And I will say that it is certainly helpful, because there's a lot of new things that we see in the law and legislation that becomes law. So, the ongoing updates and training is something that certainly helps in the system.
Oops, there we go. So, Your Honor, you have I would say, a handy guide to how, operations and responsibilities of the district court, and I think they're phenomenal. So,
Thank you very much. And we
little bit?
covered much of this.
Yeah.
This is something that I put out to some of the residents and some of my colleagues. I also have a handbook that I have put together. But one of the things that it's a little pet peeve of mine, so many people still refer to judges in the district courts as magistrates or justices. That was changed some 15 plus years ago. And the judges in the magisterial courts are referred to technically as district judges. They're not magistrates, as some people like to refer to them as. They are district judges, and it's a magisterial district court, or magisterial, meaning that's the type of court it might be. But the fact is, the title of the person that holds that seat is a district judge. The other thing you see there, Deborah, is that I like to be very proactive and outreach with my constituents and those that I serve. And so, we like to have contact information, like for Center for Victims and, the Child Line and the food bank and drug and alcohol services. These are things that are important to me, especially our senior citizens. And so I like to make sure that they have the appropriate information. And, often, even though we are a court primarily, I also feel like it's a good opportunity to help people.
I would love for you to explain, about the magisterial district court and whether or not like there are recordings of the court hearings or people need to ask for, recordings. I know it's a little nuanced, but I think it's important.
Sure. So it's interesting. They refer to the district courts as not a court of record.
Right.
However, there's a lot of records, and there's a lot of things that are recorded. We do have in a lot of the cases there are court stenographers, court reporters. There is a lot of things that is filed and that can be ascertained by the public. But it technically, is not a court of record, but there are a lot of things that in the district courts that we do keep track of, and but you're right, it's not a court of record.
But somebody could ask, if somebody comes to court, right? So, if when you make a decision and somebody may be unhappy with it, they can appeal that to the Court of Common Pleas. But they can also request that, there be that they could record, or that there be a recording of the court hearing before you, correct?
So yes, and you're right, it is a request. It is up to the judge. It's the judge's discretion, in fact.
Yep.
I've had some incidences where that's come about, like, certain attorneys feel like it's, like they can do it if they want. Doesn't work that way. It's a judicial discretion. So yeah, the court reporter, and then I will say this though, to that's important. Don't ever come into a courtroom recording or trying to take pictures or recording on your phone. That is illegal, and you can be cited, arrested, and jailed for that. It is a misdemeanor.
And the other thing that I want to ask about is, if somebody needs a translator, right, or an interpreter, I mean, before they come to court, they should let that be known to the court, correct?
That is correct, and that's very helpful. I will say though, we do have the interpreters line now that we use, and that's really helpful to us, because there are times when people forget, or there's instances where somebody's arrested and it's on the spot. So the phone interpreters are really good. It's actually been quite a good service for us. But yes, it's best that they request the interpreter, and that generally works out pretty well.
Great, thank you very much. So when a case is decided by yourself or other district judges, and somebody may or may not be happy with the outcome, what can they do? What happens next?
Sure. So there is certain rights of appeal to the Court of Common Pleas. In the matter of a landlord-tenant, it's 10 days. In the matter of most other matters, criminal and civil, it's 30 days. So they do have the ability to appeal the matter to the higher court, to the Court of Common Pleas, and then they're heard by another judge. And it is essentially a new case, if you will. And they will hear the case as if it has not been heard before. And then the outcome is, whatever it might be, according to what's presented and what that particular judge, maybe or jury in that case, would decide.
Right. So you mentioned jury. So in district courts or in magisterial district courts, there are no juries, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Right.
We are it. The judge decides all the cases. There is no jury or jury trials whatsoever.
But once you appeal it, or it's a matter that goes to the Court of Common Pleas, and there is a right to a civil or a criminal trial.
Absolutely, yes, there is, and not only a right to that trial, but a right to decide whether you'd like the judge or a jury to decide the matter.
So cases that are in excess of $12,000 with respect to civil matter would be filed in the Court of Common Pleas. There in Allegheny County, there are 4 different, I would say, divisions or sections. They are the civil, criminal, family, and orphans court. Orphans Court is a strange name, I think, in Pennsylvania. It's misleading in my mind as a lawyer, but what does Orphans Court mean to you?
Yeah, so I can't say I don't disagree. I've often wondered why it's called Orphans Court as well. I can sort of drill down and maybe come up with some ideas, but yeah, I mean, it's the court where you go to deal with estate and trust and will and these matters that are very difficult and tenuous and deal with people's well-being and treasures, if you will, property. There's some important components such as power of attorney, parental rights. There are certainly they deal with some administrative stuff too, like marriage licenses and inheritance tax and estate tax matters. So it is quite a busy court, actually. But they do a really good job of handling things that the other 3 areas do not, and it's very specific to primarily estates and trust.
Right. And so there's also family court, and I just copied this from the Allegheny County website just so that everybody knows. There are various resources on the website, again, that you can click into and get assistance with for family court. Family court includes, children's court, protection from abuse, child custody, child protection, all these various matters.
Yeah, in particular to juvenile, which is a very tender issue, and they deal with a lot of really important matters that when you think about young people and kids getting into trouble, the family court is a busy place in that regard. And the family court is so important because it deals with those very sensitive issues as it relates to family issues, and you can just imagine how tough that stuff is. And I digress a little bit back to the magisterial district courts, because so often we're seeing that stuff when it's red hot, when it's everybody's steaming, and so that's why a lot of people think, oh geez, well it's just district court is just well, no, I mean this is when people, so by the time they get to family court, things have calmed down a little bit, although it's still can be a very dangerous place, because people start to find out, with divorce and money and kids, it's a very, very tenuous operation.
One of the most important things, if you're going to represent yourself in family court, is actually to file a notice that you're representing yourself, a motion for admission, because this way you will get notices of things that are filed in family court, email notices as well as U.S. mail. But we also know that we can't trust the U.S. mail for timely delivery. So it's important to make sure that the court has your email information.
Absolutely, yes. And they've been pushing that a lot more lately, Deborah, even at every level, obtaining people's emails. And, the digital age is obviously here to stay. So that is something that they're trying to be able to notify people and get information out through email.
So, we discussed orphans court, family court, and civil includes housing court. And housing court is a very important court, and I didn't know if you wanted to discuss it a little bit.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, civil, they deal with a lot of very in-depth types of cases involving all sorts of tort and civil contract litigation. There's $1 million cases plus where people were sued, companies, malpractice and all the sort. But they also, as you said, deal with housing court, and cases relating to arbitration. And by the way, just so people know, I do want your listeners to know that going back to when we were talking about the civil court, and very often before they even get to see a common pleas judge, there's an arbitration panel that usually it's 3 attorneys, and they'll hear the case before it even goes to the actual judge or to a jury. And that's what happens in a lot of these civil cases. So people are prepared for that. And that's what these arbitration hearings are too, where you're dealing with some of these housing court cases and relative to, things that have to deal with tax and other implications regarding people's homes and how they deal with the litigants in regard to, how much they're paying for certain tax, for how much they pay in, fees and such and things like
Right.
that.
I know, and PMC does an entire program on landlord tenant, so it's hard to just do it justice in a 2-minute conversation. But tenants and landlords both have rights which they are, entitled. A landlord's entitled to receive payment for rent. A tenant's entitled to receive, heat and electricity and no lead. There's a lot that each are entitled to receive, and sometimes there's a breakdown in communications between the landlord and the tenant. And the only thing I want to just say to everybody is make sure, this is a very important speech, but make sure you keep copies of everything, right? Keep copies of emails, keep copies of leases, keep copies of checks. I mean, it is so important that when you come to court, you have this information for, to show the judge to prove your side. And not only with housing court, but any kind of civil matter. It is really important that you make sure that you keep the evidence, okay? Don't destroy anything.
No, that's a great point, Deborah. And even in district court, especially, come prepared. Whatever your case is, whether it's a traffic case or it's a civil case or a landlord tenant, come prepared. Come with copies. Come with the information. Come with your new registration card or whatever it is. You still have to be prepared when you come to court, and that's any court. That's a great point.
Thank you. So, after the Court of Common Pleas makes a ruling either by a jury or bench trial or, an order that maybe ends the case, there are appellate courts in our state, intermediate appellate courts, our superior court. There is always a right of appeal to our superior court. And actually, it's one of the busiest courts in the state because it gets over 5,000 appeals a year. They don't always take every appeal, but you have an automatic right of appeal. The Commonwealth Court is a court that is actually very unique to Pennsylvania. There it is. It was founded in 1968. It hears only state government and government agency cases, deals with like municipal taxes, real estate taxes, a case by the Attorney General. We have 9 judges on our Commonwealth Court. These are the current judges, and we'll discuss this later, but there is 1 seat up for election this year. Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts held a number of appellate court candidate forums. You can see those forums on our website. The other intermediate appellate court of which we spoke is the Pennsylvania Superior Court. This was founded in 1895. It does hear criminal and civil cases. There is one, actually for the Commonwealth Court, sorry about that, there's 2 vacancies. For the Superior Court, there is 1 vacancy. Each court, the judges have 10-year terms. Court of Common Pleas judges have 10-year terms, but district judges have 6-year terms. And there is after the judge or justice really for the Supreme Court has served that 10-year term, other than for district judges, it's a retention election. for district judges, you have to run again, don't you? It's not a yes or no, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very correct, right? There's no,
Yeah.
the most recent thing we had in the last couple of years, and I serve both as the vice president of the executive board for Allegheny County, and then I'm on state committees for the judiciary and legislative for the judges across the state. And more recently, we were able to get a declaration of candidacy for district judges, so they don't have to go out, and get signatures. They have to have served one full term in office. It's interesting. There are some people talking about maybe the possibility of district judges getting retention. Whether that ever becomes a reality, I don't know. I have my suspicions, but yes, that's correct.
I'm going to withhold judgment. There's so many bills and proposed bills about the judiciary and the legislature, and they don't seem to go anywhere. But there's other things on our legislators' plates. How's that? And then our highest court in the state is the Supreme Court. Their review of a case from the Commonwealth Court or the Superior Court is discretionary. It means that you don't have an automatic right of appeal. It is up to the Supreme Court to determine whether the whether they will take the appeal. They're, again, the ultimate authority. We have 7 justices on our court. The justice in the center, Justice Taylor, has hit 75 years and is retiring. So we have one seat open for elections this year in November. Again, it's a 10-year term. And just had this slide about information from the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts to show that, and you could see from the photos that we just shared that there are a number of active judges who are women on the bench in Pennsylvania. 30% of Pennsylvania's active judges are women. 33% of the common pleas judges are women. 26% of the magisterial district judges are women. And in Philadelphia, 28% of the Philadelphia Municipal Court judges are women. We have 3 women on our Supreme Court: Deborah Todd, Christine Donahue, and Sally Updike Mundy.
Yeah. There's never been so many women on the courts than in this very time. So it's wonderful.
So, as I've been preaching, I will say, 2021 is a judicial election year. And I keep repeating this because we had a primary in May where there were 2 million Pennsylvanians that came to vote. Last November, for the presidential election in an even year, we had 8 million Pennsylvanians come and vote. This coming November, it's an odd number year. I think we're going to have fewer than the 2 million that came to vote in May, and that's a concern, right? We need, as citizens, we need to vote. It's something that we should be appreciative of. Election day is November 2nd. You actually still have time, I think 1 more week to register to vote. I know that you can get a voter registration form from the Mount Lebanon Library. You also can Google it on the web, and it's not hard to find. Again, our elections, right? Pennsylvania Supreme Court has 10-year terms. The intermediate appellate courts have 10-year terms. Judges in the Court of Common Pleas have 10-year terms, and the district judges have 6-year terms, as well as the municipal court judges have 6-year terms. We discussed before who became a district judge, but who becomes a judge or justice, you actually have to be a member of the bar of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. You must be a resident in the district for 1 year. We've discussed, that our elections are partisan, although you should know, there are certain areas in our state where a judge can file what's known as cross file. They can run on both the Democrat and Republican ticket. I will tell you, there is a proposed bill in Harrisburg to eliminate that. So I don't think it's going anywhere, but it does exist. There are a number of positions open or on the ballot this year. As I said, there's 1 Pennsylvania Supreme Court, 1 Pennsylvania Superior Court, 2 Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court, and I'm not 100% sure on my numbers here, but I believe there actually is 10 Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, not 9. Am I correct?
That's
Your
correct.
Honor?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is absolutely correct. The 10th seat was just added recently. So
It's an old slide. I know in Mount Lebanon, the seat is for the district judge is open, and so make sure you educate yourself about the courts and and the judges who are running for them. So I'm going to skip that. So I want you to understand how you can educate yourself about your candidates, right? Find out about for the other than the district judge positions, you find out about their legal experience. Find out, you can Google, you can find out whether they go to court, whether they've been in front of certain, in court, they've argued, or what's their reputation for integrity and fairness, their community involvement, their ongoing educational and professional activities, their compassion, their empathy, their commitment to justice. Community involvement to me is one of the most important factors, because it shows that judge really cares. They get out there, they want to help people, they want to share their knowledge and with the community. But you can also find out information about the appellate court candidates, I will say, on the Pennsylvania Bar Association website, on the Allegheny County Bar Association website. Each of these bar associations has a process where they actually do their own investigation. There's a team that investigates each candidate. They interview people who know the candidate, who maybe have been opposed to the candidate, who are clients of the candidate, who may be a judge before whom the candidate has been, and the bar associations make a determination as to whether these candidates are recommended or not recommended. For attorneys, you can find out if they have any kind of disciplinary history by going on the Pennsylvania Disciplinary Board. For judges who are up for retention election, a retention election means that the judge has already had his first term at least. And, the question that is in front of you is, should this judge be retained or not? You can, again, find out about that judge's history by Googling, reading about the decisions that judge has rendered. You can go on the Pennsylvania Judicial Conduct Board website to investigate that judge. And I know that there are a number of questions in the chat, which I have not looked at. The League of Women Voters has a candidate forum, excellent, on October 21st from 8 to 9. It's really, I can't urge you enough to make sure that you educate yourself about the candidates and that you go out and vote. This is a question for you. Where do traffic and parking courts fit in the judicial triangle?
They fit in the magisterial district courts. However, they can be appealed to the Court of Common Pleas.
So the comment is, a parking judge told me that I have no constitutional rights in parking court, nor do the usual rules of evidence apply. I don't know if you have any comments on that or not.
Parking court is a little bit of a different place. It's really separate outside of the district courts, if you will. And no, but they still have rights. I mean, you can still appeal. You can still go be heard. So there's still the ability to have the rights. It is a little bit of a different place. I will give them that.
In Philadelphia, we actually got rid of our traffic court. We had so many problems with our traffic court judges that the traffic court is now, I'll say, subsumed within municipal court.
Yeah, and the other thing too that's coming up that you're starting to see now is, especially in construction zones, they're using cameras and devices, and you could get a ticket in the mail. But the interesting part about that is, ultimately now that's going to come to the district courts if you want to appeal it. So that's something really new.
So make sure you take a picture of where you park now, right? Your meters, because it's all evidence, and it's really important to make sure that you can plead your case. So then the only other thing I want to explain, since we have a little bit of time, unless anybody has any more questions, I'll just see if there's any hands up, is the difference. You know, we've been talking about Pennsylvania state court litigation. And there are also in Pennsylvania federal courts, right? So, you know, federal courts here, two types of cases. They are cases involving federal laws, federal statutes, as well as cases where there's what's known as diversity jurisdiction, where the plaintiff and defendant are from different states and the case is more than $75,000. Whoops, sorry about that. I was trying to see if I had any questions here, sorry. And then we also, in one of the courts that doesn't have the same, so federal court judges are judges appointed for life. Our federal courts, the highest federal court in the United States is our U.S. Supreme Court. Below that, in Pennsylvania, we have the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and below that, we have U.S. District Courts in Pennsylvania. We have our courts in the Western District, Middle District, and Eastern District of Pennsylvania. So the Western District is where cases that are filed relating, I'll say, to Pittsburgh plaintiff, Pittsburgh defendant, or are filed. So here are the three districts, and the Third Circuit is comprised of New Jersey, Delaware, and the Virgin Islands, and Pennsylvania. Sorry about that. Again, federal judges, including the District Court, the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, are nominated for life. We've heard about that, a lot of that in the news recently. There is a nominating committee that makes suggestions to senators, but it is ultimately, the president will make a recommendation, right? And the Senate has a confirmation hearing as to the appointment of these judges for life. There's a different process for U.S. magistrate judges and U.S. bankruptcy judges. They are only appointed for limited terms. Sometimes you'll see advertisements saying, are you interested in being a magistrate or a bankruptcy judge? You need to apply. And for magistrate judges and bankruptcy judges, those appointments and decisions are made within the Third Circuit themselves. Okay, I think
That's one of the things, I thought when they did the unification of the courts some 15 plus years ago, I wish that they would have, for district courts, district judges, that they would have taken the magisterial out altogether and just called it district courts and district judges. Because now you throw in, like, you see the magistrate judge there, that's a federal judge appointment. That has nothing to do with our courts. And part of the reason why they changed it back then too is that the Supreme Court justices didn't want us to be called justices too. They wanted to be the only justices, if you will. So, but I think in their infinite wisdom, they would have been better served to call the courts district courts and the title district judge. It would have made things a lot, I think, more simple, if you will.
There is a question that I hesitate, but it says, why do we have court costs? Aren't the courts supported by tax money? So courts are not actually completely supported by tax money, right? We have filing fees. I mean, our court money, our courts in Pennsylvania do not pay for the costs that they hand out. The filing fees don't all go back to the court. The budget for the courts is determined by our legislature. So while we think we're paying monies to the court, they actually go to our legislature, who don't always send the money back down to the courts, is the only way to say it. So our tax money is somewhat supporting the courts, but it's really up to our legislature to divvy out the money that goes to our court system. And in Pennsylvania right now, while we have 60 different county courts, we have every county has a different way of operating. And while we're known as a uniform court system, we don't have uniformity among our counties. And that's because, there isn't the money to try to help create this uniform system at the moment.
I have to be careful
I know.
what I say here, but it is very difficult when you have a $25 fine, and by the time you add up all the court costs, it amounts to $160, $170.
Right.
That's, I think, a little bit problematic, to say the least.
Yep.
I would agree with the questioner, or at least, the concern about that. I think that does have to be evaluated and looked at. I don't like the idea of, I'm a judge, I'm not a tax collector.
Right.
So, yeah.
And if there are certain situations, and you need to go on the website, but if you have, it's called informa pauperis. If you have financial, inability to pay, there are forms that can be filed out. You can ask for you have to provide support, of your financial situation. But there are situations where the court can, waive certain filing fees, certain costs.
Yeah, quite often. And I sign off on a lot of the informa pauperis forms.
Okay, I think we have, I'm looking, I think we've gotten through all I guess there's a last question, but Your Honor, I can let you handle this. Why do we not have a right to an attorney in civil court?
In civil court?
In civil court. The constitutional.
That's a big question.
Right.
That would take a long time to discuss and debate. There's people that feel that we should. And, I guess the fact of the matter is a litigious society as we've really become. Gosh, it would probably become a lot worse if people were be able to assign attorneys for civil cases. That is, like I said, that's one that's very difficult to think about and debate. But I can see certainly why those that are founders and those that make up the system provide an attorney for criminal matters, because it involves jail and other penalties. The civil, here's I guess the short answer, if you will. If you have a good civil case, there's a lot of attorneys that will take that case and then, split a percentage with you, or you can negotiate that. But if it is a good civil case, there are a lot of attorneys that will, sit down, consult with you, and then say, hey, yeah, I'll take that case for a certain percentage. So I guess in some ways it can be paid for.
And the other thing is that if you have a financial, if you have a financial limitation, there are a number of legal nonprofits that do provide, services. The Allegheny County Bar Association has a very active pro bono program, so that there are potentially, there's clearly not enough attorneys for every case that is filed, but there are attorneys that you can, that you may be able to reach out to that could help you with your lawsuit. And the only other thing I would say is that while there may not be attorneys, sometimes if you have questions, the court and the clerk's office are very helpful. The court, with respect to its website, has a lot of information, has a lot of forms. When you come in, as a pro se litigant, meaning representing yourself, the court usually, gives you a little bit of guidance and assistance, and sometimes there are clerks in the courthouse that will actually also help you, fill out a form, help you understand what a complaint is and how you complete that. So you shouldn't feel that you are completely abandoned and on your own, that there are sources of assistance.
There absolutely are. And, even like I said, in my court, I have a handbook that that I prepared, and it sort of gives defendants, litigants, plaintiffs, a little bit of background on each type of case and how you might go about handling them. They're just very factual based, because as you know, Deborah, and you acknowledge that we are really not permitted to give advice. However, we can deal with facts. And, if a person comes to court and they're up against an attorney, I'll just clarify certain things for that individual.
And I know that, I'm an attorney and I have a different language. I speak a different language. I can't help it. I've had this training. I've been years of practice, and sometimes it really makes no sense. I have to like pause and halt and say, speak normal English. So, and when you read documents, I just use the term informa pauperis. I mean, that is still a term that is used by the court, but it means that if you have financial difficulties and you're at a certain financial level, you can apply to the court to have certain costs and filing fees, for example, waived. So, I just did that. I am guilty.
No, but I think too, a lot of people need to sort of hear some of that stuff because it is important. Like when I was starting to talk about appeals and hearing a new case, I was going to say trial de novo, but
Right.
a lot of people don't know what that means. So that's kind of why I explained it in those more common sense terms. But yeah, I mean, and I think it's good for people to be educated and know the the ins and outs of some of the terminology that's used.
Right. So, all right. Well, I want to thank you, Your Honor, very much for joining PMC and joining the Mount Lebanon Library. I want to thank the Mount Lebanon Library for giving us this opportunity to have this presentation. And we look forward to having more presentations in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks
night.
to PMC. Thank you all. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Have a
Mount
great
Lebanon.
night, everybody.
Thanks,
you,
Eric. Have a
everyone.
great night.
See you at our next.